Most people don't know this. Florida is the state with the most unusual wildlife in the entire United States, and it's the second most devastated ecosystem in the world. Its ecosystems are collapsing faster than humans can save them. Every year, Florida spends more than $500 million to deal with 500 invasive species, from wild hogs, Burmese pythons, and Nile monitor lizards to lionfish in the ocean. They devour everything, reproduce uncontrollably, and take over land at a terrifying pace. Every current solution is expensive and ineffective. So what if they released one giant predator capable of eating all those invaders? Did they really propose this idea? Stay until the end to find out what creature this is, and how it could single-handedly wipe out 500 invasive species from around the world. Florida today no longer resembles a natural ecosystem. It looks more like a place humans can no longer control. Experts at the FWC describe Florida as the largest ecological failure lab in the United States. In just 20 years, the area overtaken by invasive species has exceeded 1.7 million acres, equal to twice the size of New York City, now occupied by 500 non-native species. Imagine 2 megacities replaced by Burmese pythons, Nile monitor lizards, and wild hogs. It sounds wild, but that is exactly what Florida looks like in 2025. Why is it this severe? Because Florida has what invasive species love most: a perfect natural infrastructure for expansion. Florida has 80,000 lakes, 11,000 miles of waterways, and 1,350 miles of coastline, plus warm weather year-round. As a result, Florida has been losing more than $500 million per year just to keep invasive species from completely destroying the ecosystem. If even one species escapes into the wild, it spreads like a virus, 10 times faster than in any other state. Releasing the wrong species here is no different from throwing a lighter into a fuel warehouse. A clear example is the Burmese python in the Everglades, which has wiped out more than 90% of rabbits, foxes, otters, and raccoons in less than 15 years. Scientists warn that Florida is entering an ecological collapse point, where even if you eliminate 70–80% of invasive species, nature still cannot recover on its own. So what should people do? Trap them? Hunt them? Eradicate them? They've tried everything and failed. So should they release a giant super predator capable of wiping out all 500 invasive species? And that's when the Komodo appears. It sounds unbelievable, but once you look at this creature, you'll understand why some people believe it could save Florida. This is the largest lizard on the planet, growing up to 3 meters long and weighing more than 140 kilograms, roughly the weight of 2 full-grown adults. Its body is almost designed specifically to hunt anything in its path. A massive head, wide jaws, a powerful torso, and a muscular tail like a steel whip. When young, they climb trees as fast as cats and eat everything from bird eggs and squirrels to rare birds. When they grow up, they become predators with no rivals. Truly. According to the information we found, an adult Komodo dragon has no natural predators because it is an apex predator. And the reason lies in its terrifying weapon system. First, the Komodo's immune system is so strong that even severe infections, the kind that would kill other predators, have almost no effect on it. Second, inside its mouth is a lethal combination: flesh-rotting bacteria mixed with venom glands powerful enough to drop the blood pressure of prey, prevent blood from clotting, and cause circulatory shock, combined with shark-like serrated teeth, meat-sawing teeth that can tear skin, muscle, and even bone. The Komodo is essentially bioweaponized, something even crocodiles are wary of. But what amazes ecologists the most is its ability to reproduce on its own. That's right, they don't need males. A single female Komodo can lay 20–30 eggs per clutch thanks to parthenogenesis, meaning if just one individual escapes into the wild, a few years later, we could be dealing with an entirely new population. On Komodo Island and the Lesser Sunda Islands, most of their prey are deer, buffalo, pigs, and goats, species introduced by humans, not part of the native ecosystem. In other words, Komodo dragons have been hunting invasive species for hundreds of years without any trouble. If Komodo dragons can control invasive species in Indonesia, then why can't they do it in Florida? But on the other side of the world, could a Komodo dragon actually survive in Florida? It may sound hard to believe, but Florida is even more suitable than their homeland. On the Lesser Sunda Islands, Komodo dragons live in a paradise. That's cramped. Limited land, small islands, volcanoes, and dense forests. It's tropical, hot, and humid, but food sources are limited. A large army of dragons is impossible because the space is simply too small. Florida, on the other hand, is completely different. The space is hundreds of times larger, and the food is infinitely more abundant. Burmese pythons, Nile monitor lizards, wild hogs, lionfish, and dozens of other invasive species flooding the swamps, canals, and forests. In other words, Florida is a living buffet for Komodo dragons. The subtropical climate, warm and humid year-round, with no real winter, nearly replicates 90% of Indonesia's environment. No more risk of freezing to death, no more space limitations, no shortage of ambush spots. Sawgrass, wetlands, and thick forests are all perfect for dragons to hide and strike. On paper, scientists have created a scenario where releasing Komodo dragons into Florida sounds strangely reasonable. In theory, Komodo dragons could wipe out many invasive species at the same time. Imagine a scenario like this: wild hogs suddenly becoming lunch for 3-meter-long lizards. Burmese pythons, the species responsible for wiping out more than 95% of small mammals in the Everglades, could also be ambushed and taken down by Komodo dragons when they're young or while they're eating. With shark-like serrated teeth, venom, and the ability to swallow prey up to 80% of their own body weight, they could absolutely take on large animals. Some ecological models even suggest that Komodo dragons could help restore the food chain by reducing pressure from wild hogs and Burmese pythons, giving bird, turtle, and small mammal populations room to breathe again. In addition, wild hogs carry dangerous diseases like leptospirosis, which can spread to humans and livestock. If Komodo dragons reduce the hog population, the level of disease transmission would drop as well. Sounds very reasonable, doesn't it? But that's only on paper. Now let's face the reality they would encounter. The wild hogs here are not the cute farm pigs you're imagining. They are descendants of the pigs brought by the Spanish in the 16th century, and after more than 400 years of evolution, they have become true monsters. This invasive species appears in nearly 30 states, but Florida is one of the 5 most heavily damaged. They live near the Everglades and farms, eating corn and acorns, destroying crops, and threatening people's livelihoods, while also carrying dangerous diseases like leptospirosis. The total estimated damage reaches $1.5 million each year. Experts conclude that the only way to control wild hogs is total eradication, but in reality, this is almost impossible. They are fast, intelligent, and extremely hard to hunt. And this is where the Komodo enters the story. Komodo dragons don't need to chase. All they need is a bush, tall grass, or a patch of shade to ambush from, and the prey walks right into striking distance. Once the hog is close enough, the Komodo's venom instantly lowers blood pressure, causes non-stop bleeding, triggers shock, and prevents clotting. Its serrated teeth, combined with strong neck muscles, tear through flesh, creating wounds even a healthy wild hog can barely survive. And if the prey manages to escape? No problem. A Komodo can track the scent of blood for hours until the animal collapses. In fact, Malaysia once recorded a 45-kilogram monitor lizard swallowing a 40-kilogram wild hog whole. Another one took down a 30-kilogram hog in 17 minutes. And in the wild, many cases of wild hogs being killed in less than 10 seconds have been documented. But compared to wild hogs, the Komodo dragon would face a far more terrifying opponent. They are quieter and far more destructive. And these are not the small snakes you see in fields. Adult pythons in Florida typically reach 1.8–2.7 meters in length, but the most frightening record is a python measuring 5.5 meters, weighing nearly 100 kilograms, as long as a pickup truck and as heavy as an NFL player. The problem isn't just their size, it's their stomach. When scientists dissect pythons, they find everything: rabbits, turtles, wild turkeys, rare native birds, and even full-grown deer. A USGS study showed that opossums, gray foxes, marsh rabbits, and many other small mammals have declined by 99% in python-dominated areas, meaning they have nearly erased an entire tier of animals in the food chain. Did you know a python can eat prey weighing 100% of its own body weight? A python can swallow prey equal to 100% of its mass, meaning a 100-kilogram snake can swallow a 100-kilogram deer. In Indonesia, Komodo dragons live alongside reticulated pythons, the longest snakes on Earth. That's why many experts believe that when it comes to Burmese pythons, Komodo dragons wouldn't see them as monsters, just a slightly larger meal than usual. But the story doesn't end there. Because Florida once tested its luck with an invasive monitor lizard before, and the price they paid still makes them shudder today. That species was the Nile monitor, a much smaller version compared to the Komodo dragon, yet the consequences were anything but small. With a length of only 2.5 meters and weighing around 5 to 15 kilograms, the Nile monitor doesn't look too threatening, but don't let the size fool you. This is a semi-aquatic predator that hunts in every space it can reach, on land, underground, in trees, in fresh water, and even in salt water. And its diet, to put it simply, anything within a 20-meter radius is at risk of disappearing. Crabs, shrimp, snails, slugs, insects, frogs, lizards, turtles, bird eggs, baby alligators, young birds, small mammals. The list is so long that if you name a species living in Florida, chances are the Nile monitor has eaten it at least once. South Florida's canal system accidentally became a superhighway for them, helping this species spread far faster than most other invasive animals. In Cape Coral, they became a literal plague. The area is both a hotspot for burrowing turtles and a hotspot for Nile monitors. The result? Pets disappeared, feral cats disappeared, sea turtles, gopher tortoises, wading birds, yes, they were wiped out. Now imagine this. That was just the lightweight monitor species. What about the Komodo dragon? One Komodo's size and destructive power equals the entire Nile monitor population combined. And if both species existed together in Florida, what would happen? It wouldn't be one species replacing another, but a two-layer buffet. Nile monitors clearing out the lower ecological tier, eggs, birds, small mammals, while Komodo dragons handle the upper tier, deer, wild hogs, and introduced antelope. As we mentioned earlier, Komodo dragons have no natural predators, but that's only true in places like Malaysia. In Florida, things are not so certain. South Florida is the only place on Earth where both American crocodiles and Mississippi alligators live together. Adult alligators are 325 meters long and can weigh up to 450 kilograms, 3 times heavier than an adult Komodo dragon. Not only that, their jaws generate more than 2,000 psi of bite force, strong enough to crush a turtle shell and break a deer's bones in a single snap. But what makes them truly terrifying opponents is their swimming ability. Slow on land, but once they enter the water, alligators become living arrows, shooting forward in an instant, so fast that most large animals can't react in time. Meanwhile, even though Komodo dragons have sharp claws, a muscular tail, and venom that lowers blood pressure in prey, none of that matters against the thick, armor-like skin of a crocodilian. If these two species ever faced each other, the scenario would be almost certain. On land, the Komodo might strike first, but the moment the fight slips into water or mud, the advantage shifts completely to the alligator. Even though it may sound like a smart move, or even a bold Florida-style solution, once you look deeper, the idea of releasing Komodo dragons into this ecosystem opens up a chain of consequences so dark that no expert dares to say them all out loud. First is the foundational ecological cycle, something your opponent never mentioned deeply enough. Florida receives more than 138 million tourists every year, relying on parks, wetlands, beaches, wildlife reserves, airboat tours, kayaking trips, and the Everglades ecosystem. With just one announcement, this area is closed due to sightings of wild Komodo dragons. What do you think will happen? Miami Beach, Disney's Animal Kingdom, Everglades tours, all would instantly become high-risk zones. a full-blown media nightmare. And then comes the issue of human health. Komodo dragons can carry salmonella, intestinal parasites, and necrotizing bacteria, things that have hospitalized multiple researchers. If these pathogens enter Florida's ecosystem, or worse, spread to pets and residents, Komodo dragons do not grow up in cities. Their homeland is remote islands with low human density, thick forests, and no highways. Florida is the opposite. The highest highway density in the southeast, neighborhoods hugging the coastline, abundant trash, and an endless supply of leftover food. Komodo dragons hunt by ambush from bushes, and think about how many parks, golf courses, and residential areas border forests in Florida. In Indonesia, even with sparse populations, Komodo dragons have injured people in 2007, 2009, and 2020. So in Florida, far more crowded, you understand what I'm hinting at, right? Next, the US has lost $1.22 trillion since 1960 due to invasive species. Florida alone spends $125 million just to control invasive plants. The Lionfish Research Program costs $250,000 per year. Now think about it. A massive predator that roams widely, is intelligent, can climb when young, swims well, and reproduces asexually. The cost to control it wouldn't be in the hundreds of millions. It could reach billions of dollars every year, not counting losses in tourism, real estate, and the legal risks because releasing Komodo dragons would violate federal law. The Lacey Act, CITES Appendix Y, the Endangered Species Act, and U.S. wildlife law all prohibit importing or releasing dangerous non-native predators. With just one bad decision, Florida wouldn't just lose its ecosystem, it would face enormous economic, legal, and human risks. And have you thought about Florida hurricanes? A Category 4 storm can pick up sailboats, cars, and Komodo dragons, dropping them onto highways or into neighboring states like Georgia, Alabama, or Louisiana, triggering an invasion chain no one could predict. Florida is warmer than Indonesia, meaning Komodo dragons would eat more, move faster, and reproduce more easily. Accidentally, the state could create an American super monster no one could control. The idea of releasing one species to control another was once seen as a cheap, fast, and smart solution, but ecological history shows that this is one of the biggest mistakes humans have repeated from continent to continent. You want proof? We have an entire list of disasters to tell. Let's start in Australia, where the government once believed that cane toads, a species the size of a softball, could help control beetles that were destroying sugarcane crops. The result? The beetles survived just fine, but Australia ended up with 200 million poisonous toads spreading across the northeast, wiping out many native predators. An ecological disaster worth billions of dollars, one that continues to this day. Then there's New Zealand, where people released cats and stoats to deal with rabbits. But do you know what happens when you release predators into a country where 80% of birds evolved without natural enemies? The entire nation became a playground for cats. Many flightless birds like the kiwi, kakapo, and takahe almost disappeared. One species even had to be evacuated to a man-made island just to escape the cats. But the most infamous case is the brown tree snake on Guam. They arrived after World War II, possibly through a single cargo ship. These snakes are fast, skilled climbers, nocturnal, and eat anything with feathers or eggs. The result? 10 out of 12 native bird species on Guam vanished completely. The ecosystem collapsed so severely that officials had to use robots and military aircraft to drop snake poison. Cost? Hundreds of millions of dollars. And to this day, Guam has still not recovered. Do you see the pattern? The original invasive species survives. The newly introduced species becomes a second invasive species. The final outcome? A double disaster. In the end, the story of Komodo dragons in Florida isn't about a smart solution. It's an old lesson humanity has never truly learned. Nature does not operate according to human wishes. A single species released in the wrong place can change the fate of an entire region. And Florida, with its warming climate, nature-dependent tourism, and fragile ecosystems, is the last place for bold, risky experiments like this. So, what do you think? If you were an environmental manager, would you dare release Komodo dragons into Florida? Or do you believe this would become an even bigger disaster than the Burmese python? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might open up a new way of thinking for everyone. And if you enjoy strange but true ecological stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.